Okay, is it recording?
Yeah. I'll be there for you.
Hi guys, welcome to the Med Mentors YouTube channel. I think we're just going to introduce ourselves. So I'm Jenny, I'm a final year medical student at Melbourne Uni and I did my undergrad in Biomed, Monash. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Damian, also final year medical student based in Dalston, and I also did my undergrad at Monash University.
Hi, I'm Yida. I'm a third year medical student at the University of Melbourne. I did an undergrad at Monash and I did biomed and science.
Okay, so I think I'll just get to the question.
This ain't awkward at all.
I guess we can start with the question, how or where did you get the information you needed to navigate the application process? Who wants to go first?
Well, I got all my information from Jenny because we were friends in undergrad and she was a year above me. So where did you guys get your advice from?
I think a lot of the advice, apparently a lot of people were using something called Paging Doctor. I actually had no idea that website existed, so I think it just came from advice from other people who had done med. I guess like you know what they want on the Genesis website. I think you just apply straight there and they'll have access to your GPA and they'll offer you an interview from there.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of the information was online. Might be hard to find, but it's definitely out there. Especially probably on like the Genesis website detailing what exactly you need to apply, and just echoing what Jenny said in terms of Paging Doctor. I think that's just a great resource and really good questions for practicing interviews and also just general admin stuff. So breaking down for each uni what exactly you needed and what kind of weighting there was.
The next question, this is a funny one. Did you tell anyone you were applying for medicine? It's an interesting question, but I think it's a relatable one in biomed. If you realize that the first time you sit down next to someone, the first thing they'll be like is, oh, you want to do med? And you don't really know how to answer that, I guess, because you probably do want to do med, but you've also probably done biomed to keep your options open, and you don't want to look like you're too keen, because I guess you're scared of rejection and you're like, what if I don't get in? Then I'll look like the biggest idiot who was so keen for med and I didn't get in.
I think the first lecture we had, they were like, raise your hand if you want to do med, and pretty much everybody raised their hands, and then the lecturer was like, most of you won't get in, so think about research.
Yeah.
But don't let that deter you. If you want to get in, you'll get in.
If you do say you do want to go, you'll end up finding a group of people that also want to do med and will actually study with you, and you guys will boost each other up and you get to swap resources for studying for the GAMSAT. So it's actually really good to talk about it, and you can kind of like not feel, you know, worried that you're competing with other people, because I mean, if you work together, hopefully all of you guys will get in.
How did you work out the best way to preference each medical school in your application? I feel like honestly it wasn't that hard, mainly because there's only 2 medical schools in Victoria. No, 3, sorry, I totally forgot. 3 you can really preference for. So there's Monash, there's Melbourne Uni, and there's Deakin. So I think most people were hoping to get somewhere there, and then you just rank the rest of the medical schools in different states that you're hoping to get into.
Yeah, and I guess if you already know your GAMSAT score and you know what you do well in, on Paging Doctor they often talk about what are the requirements to get in, or like what a low score is and what a high score is, and you can kind of compare your scores from GAMSAT, your WAM. You can also compare, you know, like your extracurriculars and see whether you might fit into a portfolio med school a bit better than a more, I guess, GAMSAT interview focused med school.
And I think for people who used to like toss up between Monash and Melbourne, back in the day the main thing was more like, do you want to go more down like a researchy sort of pathway? If you did, you would probably prefer Melbourne Uni because they have a whole semester long research subject. if you're hoping to go interstate, I guess something to keep in mind as well is when you apply for a job in a hospital when you graduate back in Melbourne, you have to keep in mind that you're technically a different priority. So they'll consider you, I think, priority 2. Priority 2 because you're graduating from a different state coming back, so it might be a bit harder for you to get into a hospital here, which is just important to keep in mind if you want to come back.
Yeah, but I think it's important to say that in the end you're all going to get the same degree. So regardless of where you get in, firstly getting in is definitely really something that should be commended. You know, you all get the same degree, you'll have the same opportunities to do research and whatever fields you go in. So
I don't think this is going to be very helpful, but did you apply for portfolio schools? Any tips on a portfolio or letter of interest to some school? I'm pretty sure none of us applied for
I helped
portfolio
Vince
school.
apply
okay.
for one.
Was it University of Sydney?
No, I think it was like Newcastle or something. But I don't really have anything to say about it. It's just like if you do a lot of volunteering, you should be able to talk about
Is
it.
it like a CV?
No, you have to write about like what you did, what it was like, you know, what you gained from it, that kind of thing.
Do you have any tips or words of advice you would like to give your pre-med self about applications? Specifically about applications, I guess.
I wish I was more thorough with my applications. I kind of, for some reason, didn't apply for all the unis that I could have. I didn't regret it only because I got into the university that I wanted to. But if I didn't, I guess I should have been a bit more aware about when to apply, where to apply, and making sure that I have all those things ready for the application. But yeah, if I were to go back and I didn't get into the med school I did, I'll be really upset that I didn't apply to another med school that I wanted to go.
I didn't even know that. I think I found out that Sydney had their own separate applications the day it closed. And I was just like, oh well. But yeah, I think it would have been good to be on top of that, especially the ones that need a portfolio. You want to get that probably prepared. Because something like Monash, they had their own pathway as well, and they had a application process on their website to enter for the interviews. And I think a lot of students in our year level actually didn't realize it was happening because they didn't really announce it anywhere on any platform. You had to go and look for it yourself. So I guess with these things you have to be pretty proactive, or else you might miss certain things by the deadline.
yeah, definitely just getting your head around all the different systems that are in place and all the different med schools that you might have to separately apply to. And that's where something like Paging Doctor really comes handy, because it gives you a good overview, or you can just make like an Excel sheet yourself.
Ooh. Are you happy with how everything turned out for you? I guess for people watching, I guess it looks obvious, like, you know, we go into med, which is kind of like the big goal when you're in like biomed or science. But I think it's important to know, like, the hard work, the stress, stuff like that doesn't end with like your undergraduate degree. It's still super stressful. It's still really hard to do things, and like we're currently going through applications and interview process like all over again for hospitals. So the feeling you get is like it never really ends.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a way to see it's just another step in your journey of life and being a doctor. So just be aware of that.
I guess, yeah, kind of following on that, you kind of forget when you're in your early 20s that life isn't all just about career. Like, I guess while I'm in med school, I've kind of realized how important figuring out what I like and what I want my future to be like is. And as much as I love the fact that my future is going to be in medicine, I have to keep in mind that it's not all about working, and you need to figure out what's going to suit your lifestyle.
I think a lot of us are told in year 12 like to study really hard, and they're like, study to the point where you're so exhausted because you'll be able to relax once you get into uni. I think that's a bit of a dangerous advice to give, because that causes a lot of people to be burnt out. So I think it's also dangerous to tell people you just need to study really hard in biomed to get into med, and then it's all like smooth sailing from here. Like, I think it's more realistic to know what's ahead, and like just to be resilient and know how to pace yourself for all of that. Okay. what lies ahead.
Take lots of breaks.
Yeah, definitely. The next question is, what was the most challenging aspect of the entire process and how did you overcome it?
Personally for me, it would be interviews because I've had a few applications in the past for undergrad and also for Monash, which I think I really struggled on the interviews. So I think that was a hurdle that I really had to overcome, and I guess the way I really did it was just practice. I was lucky enough to have my sister, who's also a doctor, so she really ran through with me my questions and really refined and just improved my approach to interviews. And as we've been reiterating, Paging Doctor, good resource for interviews particularly. They have a resource bank. We can really just go over scenarios and think about how you'd respond to that.
I guess my most challenging thing would probably have been the GAMSAT, because I was probably quite lucky. I got one of the lower ends of what's acceptable to get in for an interview. But like Damian said, you really just have to practice it. Even though it was still on the low end, I did improve quite a bit from the first time I took the GAMSAT. It's very rare for people to be naturally talented at like all three aspects of getting into medical school. So you really do have to practice, and you need to know how to practice to be good at it, and then hopefully that pays off.
Make it till you make it,
Yeah.
essentially.
As much as the GAMSAT and the interviews were hard, I think I found it the worst when I was in between finding out what my GAMSAT score was, finding out if I got into the interview, finding out if I actually got into med. I had so many nights where I was just so anxious and so worried about it. And also your friends talk about it if they're applying, and you feel really scared because you're like, oh no, they're doing so well in the GAMSAT. It's all this self-talk which is really negative. And I guess you just have to remember that you can't control anything after it's done. You tried your best. If it doesn't work out, then you can try again next year, or you can find something else that you'd like to do. Just not feel like that time is all anxiety, because there's like no point in being worried.
Yeah, there's no point worrying about things you can't control. So just forget about it, go on a holiday.
Every person trying to get into medicine will agree one of the worst feelings is the feeling of uncertainty, because you're always feeling like, what happens if I don't get in? And there's all these really smart people around you in the course, and you feel like you won't get in at all.
It's going to be in the video.
How did you balance uni work and GAMSAT practice?
I think it's about being disciplined. For me personally, I would set aside an hour every night to just work on the GAMSAT, whether it's doing some questions from section 1 or writing an essay, or just looking up some theory. I'm just doing a little bit every night, even though it's relatively small. That definitely will help you in the long run. And in terms of uni work, well, I think it's just about prioritization. When you have exams, then you can kind of focus on that. But when it's coming towards the GAMSAT, then you kind of study a bit more about that. But definitely having a balance, not overloading yourself, is really important.
Yeah, I feel like there's big gaps between the first GAMSAT at the start of the year and the second one, or if you're planning on taking one every year. So you actually do have quite a bit of time to prepare and pace yourself. Also with juggling uni assessments, you should also try and prepare yourself so you're not doing a lot of things all together last minute, really rushed. So you do actually have a lot of time, especially in the holidays, to prepare for the GAMSAT. So I think back in undergrad, Yida and I, in the summer holidays, we would study for the second GAMSAT, so our second try. We would go to Melbourne Uni and we would just do a bunch of practice questions for section 1, I think.
Yeah, just you work a lot in the holidays if you're applying for the March GAMSAT. And I guess also the essay part, I think, was something that I just enjoyed doing in my spare time. You can always just write a bit of an essay, when you're having a bit of an angsty moment at home. And I think it's really great to have people that are also studying for the GAMSAT, so you can share the resources, talk about what you're struggling with. You can kind of study together like we did. And if there are some people that are really good at writing essays and then you're really good in the science section, it's kind of good to kind of tutor each other and work together as a team.
Are there any books, films, articles that you recommend for future med students that might help broaden their horizons and getting ready for an interview?
I think just in general being aware of what's outside of, biomed/medicine. I think what they really value in medicine, I guess particularly the interview, is that you're a well-rounded individual. And specifically, I know in the past there have been questions that are a bit kind of outside of medicine, particularly around like vaccinations, the NDIS. So it does pay to kind of be more aware of kind of current events. And you can just be around that by just reading the news or watching the news.
Yeah. They definitely value you thinking critically, but thinking openly. I guess, to be honest, I didn't really prepare with those sort of things when I was preparing for the interview, if I'm honest. I was probably using those more for like section 2 of the GAMSAT to do the essay writing practice.
Yeah, I think there's always a lot of books that are really targeted towards biomed and med students. I'm thinking of like the one about the neurosurgeon. Do you guys know what that's called?
When breath becomes air.
Yeah,
something like that.
And like when you're preparing for the GAMSAT, everyone says, "Oh, you should kind of read some of those books." I know House of God is a med students like nightmare, but I don't really know if reading them actually helps that much. I think if you're really worried about thinking about those topics, you can always look up, the ethics for medicine, and I guess you learn a lot about it in biomed as well. And then just applying them to everyday life is actually kind of enough. You could talk about like the Kardashians while also talking about medical ethics somehow.
Well, the thing is, just because like if you're preparing for the interviews, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a specifically like medical book. Like if they still draw on similar ideas like critical thinking, that's also fine too. So yeah,
I think it's just important to be authentic and not to be someone you're not. And as long as you do that, I think the interviewers will definitely respect that. And as long as you're not kind of saying something outrageous, you'll do well.
Yeah, like you need to remember you're also your own self. You have your own opinions. You have hobbies. You have ideas. Like it's important to show that through the interviews. Oh, as a previous candidate and current medical student, how do you maintain mental health and well-being in such a stressful pathway?
Therapy.
That's still a difficult question because I still struggle with maintaining your own well-being, especially during really stressful like exam periods. But I think we all, as a cohort, tend to like heavily rely on each other, like for mental support, like your friendship groups. It's quite similar to back in biomed, I guess. Like we used to heavily rely on our friends for also mental support as well, and we make sure that it wasn't always just studying in biomed. We actually did a lot of things. We had a lot of fun. Like we would go to balls.
Yeah.
We went to a few events. We would hang out all the time during breaks, and we used to vlog.
Oh, we used to
vlog in biomed. I'll chuck a clip in.
We're here for the GAMSAT. We just write down what we think the answers, and then we go check.
First answer's right, second answer's right, third answer's right. Oh my god.
Woo!
4th, 5th, 6th. Okay, no, the last one's not.
Yeah, just to show that there's some fun moments in biomed. What about your group? Because you had a different group to us.
Yeah, it wasn't as fun. I think everybody, we were just all doing our own kind of thing and studying, and for me personally, I just kind of, it was pretty bad. I just locked myself in my room every day and just studied.
Aww.
Don't do what Damian does.
I think I did try to like have like protected time, during the evenings, just when there was like no studying. So it's probably been said before, but yeah, work-life balance, pretty important.
Yeah, I think hobbies are really important. Jenny and I were discussing this a day ago about how if you don't have a hobby, you don't really have like another part of your identity. You shouldn't have studying as your identity. Netflix should not be an identity. Just, find your own hobbies that are calming, and you can schedule them into your day-to-day routine, and it's just nice to have something to do and relax with.
I think I see this a lot where I feel like a lot of people make med their whole life. So they come in, they talk about it, and they go to the hospital, and they spend their whole time there, and they come back and do more med things, like, which is fine. Like, studying and like medical podcasts are still really great ways to like keep up to track with everything, but I think you need, yeah, you definitely your own time with like very important non-med related things.
Yeah, that's how you get burnt out.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's all the questions, so thanks for sticking through with us in this video today, and I don't really know how to close off a video.
Forget to subscribe and press the ring the bell button.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please pop them down in the comments below, and we'll try and answer them. But yeah, good luck with the application process. Try not to be too stressed out, even though that's very hypocritical of me to say. And yeah, good luck with everything.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.